Hi everyone, welcome to Summer, a program in which we invite an expert each month to discuss a topic from their area of expertise. And in this episode, we are delighted to have Christiana Serle to talk about mindfulness. As a former colleague, athlete, and current triathlete, Christiana always believed fitness and nutrition were paramount to improving performance and overall health. But her perspective shifted completely when she attended a 10 days, silent meditation retreat in 2014. And through that experience, she began to unlock the power of the mind and the body connection and began applying mindfulness principles and techniques to areas in her life like eating, parenting, and friendships. Christiana now helps high achievers find presence through one-to-one coaching and working with organizations. She has over 200 so far to design wellness programs for their employees that center around mindfulness. Christiana's intention is to improve health, productivity, and happiness in all of her teams. Isn't that fantastic? She's been recognized as one of the top 10 health promotion professionals by the Wellness Council of America, and her clients have won many local and national awards for their employee wellness programs. This is all exciting stuff and very much aligned with the path which I'm following at the moment. Christiana, we're so happy to have you on our show.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Tell me, how did it all start? I know it started with this retreat that you did, 10 days. Could you describe that and how it impacted your life and your views on life?
Yeah, for sure. So I have two young kids now. This was before I had any children. So if some of you have kids, it's definitely hard to envision doing that with them around. But I was going through a tough time in my life. I was transitioning my career and then had some personal health struggles at that moment and decided kind of on a whim to sign up for this 10-day retreat. I'd never really meditated before, which I don't recommend, but I recommend meditation, but not doing a 10-day necessarily if you've never done it. And it was, as you can guess by me being here with you today, John, it was life-changing for me. I'd never realized how much I had going on in my mind at all times, even if I was sitting in silence, just, the songs that would come up, the thoughts, the old stories I would tell myself, things that may have happened, things that may have not, yes. Old emotions. And you're nodding like you know what I'm talking about. So it was just a beautiful experience, very difficult, very challenging. But when I came back, I said, this is an amazing practice, but quickly realized I couldn't live my life in silence. That was not my path. So I had to learn kind of how to bring the principles that I had learned into a life that does have a phone and speaking and communication in many forms. So that's kind of how I started on this path.
So you went from without doing any meditation basically at all to 10 days of silence, of pure meditation, which is high level. Are you the sort of person that does things full on or nothing? You go right into something?
Yeah, I tend to be. I think in that case, I knew I wanted to make a life change. And I think, you seems like you would understand this too. I just had an intuition that this was kind of something that I needed to do. It had crossed my path a few times and I'd said, no, I don't want to do that. And then when I had this health challenge and the career change, I said, you know what, I just need to do something that I would never have done before. And that happened to be it. So, it was I don't know if not quite a midlife, maybe not a quarter life, but it was some life crisis at that time.
Right. And a lot of people do experience those sorts of crises, but there can also be opportunities to make a big change. Now you turn your crisis into something extremely good because now you're mentoring people, you're improving the lives of thousands of people, which brings me to the point. Just what is mindfulness?
Sure, great question. So mindfulness technically is, if you want to get into a definition of it, it's awareness of the present moment without judgment. How I like to use that in kind of layman's terms is just really paying attention to what you are experiencing in the moment. So if you're brushing your teeth, most of us are not mentally there for that. But if you're being mindful, you're paying attention to the water as it comes out of the faucet, the smell of the toothpaste, the feeling of the bristles of the toothbrush as they kind of touch your teeth or your gums. So it's about bringing awareness to these different things that we do throughout the day. Like eating is a big one I get a lot of questions about. If you pay attention to what you're eating, you might actually find that you eat less. You might find you eat more.
Right.
But you're going to enjoy it more, most likely.
How will mindfulness help people in day-to-day life activities? You've talked about brushing teeth, but during the course of a day, how can it benefit someone? It'll be hard for many people to understand. I think, well, brushing teeth is kind of nice and it's zen, it's in the moment, but after you brush your teeth, then you're doing your day-to-day activities.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways. I mean, I think you can apply mindfulness to every area of your life. Like I mentioned, eating is a big one. I think most of us, especially in this day and age, tend to eat on the go. We're eating standing up. Maybe we're eating while we're working at the same time. And so we're not fully present. We're not paying attention to what we're actually doing. And in the case of eating, we often overeat or we're not satisfied. I always say sometimes I'll grab a cookie and all of a sudden the cookie's gone. And I'm like, wait, what happened? Like, did I actually eat it? And you realize, yes, you ate it, but you didn't take the time to enjoy it. And so your body doesn't, your mind doesn't realize that you had it. So you might eat another one. You might eat 10 more. So eating is a big one. Same thing with just physical activity. You might find that your body needs certain things on different days as you pay more attention to how you're feeling each day. Some of us might need music to work out to some days, and other days you might want to do something slower, like maybe going for a walk with a friend, and that counts as your exercise for the day. But a big one, and one that kind of has made mindfulness famous, so to speak, if you want to say that, is stress management. So by being more present to your day-to-day experience, your moment-to-moment experience, you can actually reduce your stress and reduce your anxiety because now you're more aware of how things are affecting you that are around you. And you can use tools that I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit to reduce that feeling of stress, that feeling of anxiety.
A lot of what you've talked about sounds kind of the benefits one gets from meditation when one becomes aware of the universe and calm. And in fact, mindfulness was born from a certain 10-day retreat. How do the two differ?
So great question. So I look at it as meditation is a tool for mindful living. So meditation is when you take time out of your day and you sit and meditate, whether you focus on your breath, which is mindful meditation.
Yes.
Or you could do a mantra meditation. Some people like ones where, you imagine yourself on a beach. There's a lot of different types of meditations. The one for mindfulness is we constantly focus on our breath. So that's meditation. And then mindfulness is kind of where the rubber meets the road. It's once you're done with the meditation and you're stuck in traffic and someone cuts you off, how do you respond to that situation? Do you respond mindlessly by reacting and yelling at them and honking your horn? Or are you conscious enough to take a breath and say, okay, this wasn't ideal. I wouldn't choose this, but I'm going to accept that this is my current experience in this moment. So another way to look at it for those of us that are exercisers is, you go to the gym, you lift biceps, or maybe you do squats. And, you've taken time from whatever else you have that day to go exercise the body. That's kind of what meditation is. It's exercise for the mind, focusing the mind. And then when you leave the gym and you have a package arrive at your house and you have to use some of those muscles to, pick it up, that would be the mindfulness. So it's the real world application of the meditation.
Okay. I'd say almost certainly, it's almost it is like that stress levels today are more than they were for our ancestors. And I think that application of any techniques that can reduce stress levels It's got to be beneficial for our health. But what signs can people look out for to see that their stress levels are beyond normal and something needs to be done?
Yeah, so stress is interesting. Our stress from our ancestors that you mentioned, it's just different. When we were being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, that might be a little bit more stressful than our phone battery dying, for example. So, it's just different stress. And I use that example also because what stresses you out is going to be very different than what causes me stress. So it's a very unique experience for each individual person because I have my own culture, my own family relationships, my own health that I'm managing. And so what causes me stress is going to be different than what causes you stress. And then additionally, how we respond to it is going to be different as well. But some common things to look for are, this feeling of maybe tightness in your chest. Maybe like I hold my breath when I'm feeling stressed. I'm not holding my breath and turning blue, but I breathe much more shallow than I would normally. Others might experience sweating, or just a feeling of tension. They might notice their fists are clenched. My 6-year-old son clenches his fists when he starts to feel, a little bit stressed about something. Some people might notice a furrow in their brow, clenching the jaw. But over time, these again have different effects on people. But if you're having trouble sleeping, I always tell this story. So if you meet my husband, you can feel free to ask him about this because this is a story of his. But when I first met him, he had a hard time sleeping through the night. He would fall asleep, but he couldn't stay asleep because he had, anxiety and stress because of his job that he couldn't stay asleep. He would wake up with racing thoughts. So, over time, this chronic stress, which is different from short-term acute stress, if you're cut off in traffic, to use the example I shared before, that's momentary. Once that car drives away or a few minutes later, it's over. But if it's chronic and it's constantly affecting you, you might notice trouble sleeping. Some people also notice issues with their stomach, maybe irritation in the stomach, that kind of thing. The body starts to break down. So you might see those types of things in your, stress eating, for example. Some of us like to eat, a lot of food when we're feeling stressed. So again, that's where the mindfulness comes in. You just have to start to become aware of what affects you, and then how do you respond to it in your body and in your mind.
It's almost like tuning in with your emotions and your own feelings and the sensations that your body's receiving.
Exactly. Yep. You got it.
Wow. So is it difficult to do? Can someone just immediately start applying what we've discussed over the last quarter hour, or is there other stages that one must take?
So the answer is it is easy to do, but it's difficult to remember to do. That's one of the things we joke about in our circle is, one of the hardest things about it is to remember to practice. So there's not really there are techniques out there, but it's really just about starting where you are on your journey. So if for you meditating for 30 seconds feels like a lot, then start there. If you're someone that's been doing this for years, you can start longer. But, the key is with any behavior change, I believe, is to start small and then incrementally grow. I didn't start where I am on this journey yesterday. I started probably a decade ago at this point, implementing different things. And now here's where I happen to be, I have a long way to go as well. But that's what I would say is, it can be difficult, because once you start to become aware of those emotions that you talked about, John, that those sometimes can be difficult. That can bring up things that might be challenging for you to realize, like, oh my gosh, I never noticed that I reacted to this situation in this way. And maybe that's not how I would want to be perceived by someone. So that can be a little bit tough, but to begin, as far as doing a practice right away, it's pretty simple to begin.
Okay. Okay.
And it can be free, which is nice too.
It is. It's a personal thing. It's when it's self-improving, isn't it? But you've got to
Mhm.
self-discipline as well. Is it difficult to maintain the pattern?
So I think, when you start anything new, it can be difficult to implement that into your life, but I recommend to make it easier to pick a time of day that works best for you. For me, that's first thing in the morning. So I get up before anyone in my house and I do my meditation practice in the morning. And then that helps me be more mindful throughout the day because I've started my day with that sense of calm.
Right.
Now, I mentioned I have two young kids. Sometimes they don't follow my schedule. So they get up early too. So, you just have to go with the flow a little bit with that. But again, starting small. So, my husband and I actually sort of found this work together and we started and we just said, okay, what is something reasonable that we really feel that we can achieve, but will still be a little bit challenging? So, we started with just 10 minutes a day. And we had a little chart and we had stars. And every time we did it, we got stars. And, we started with a month. So we said for 30 days, we're going to each do 10 minutes a day. It didn't have to be together. But for us, that kind of got the habit going. And then once we finished 30 days, we fell off the wagon and then we had to start again. And so I think it takes, and research shows that it takes more than 60 days to complete, to make a habit, have it stick.
Yes.
But it can be longer if this is something that's difficult for you. It can be even longer. So for me, it was probably closer to 90 days to really make it a habit and feel like I could tell when I missed a day.
When people practice at least meditation, and I meditate myself, I'm aware of things that happen whilst you're meditating. What happens almost every time is that your mind, before you know it, you're thinking of something. And of course, meditation is not about solving problems while you're zoning out. What would you suggest to people that have got problems just trying to block off what's around them and then becoming at one with the universe?
Right. So that's the biggest challenge. And as a meditator, you know this, your mind, you come up with the most interesting thoughts when you're meditating. Right? So for mindfulness meditation, anytime you notice your mind has wandered to something else, it might be a thought, maybe it's an emotion, it might be even a body sensation. Sometimes your back starts hurting or your leg falls asleep, something like that. That's your sort of reminder to come back to your breath. So anytime you notice, you come back to your breath. And it might have been, you might have been wandering and wandering and wandering, and you're now in the 27th dimension. You come back. So you always come back to your breath. Your breath is what we call an anchor. And some people have trouble connecting to your breath. So if you are one of those, which I was when I first started, you focus on your breath where you feel it in your body. So that might be the nose, where you breathe in. Maybe it's the chest. You can notice the rise and fall of your chest as you breathe in and out. Or you can put your hands on your stomach too. So if you have trouble connecting with your breath, you can do that as well.
Right. I noticed with questions I'm asking you, you give several alternatives. Is this because everyone is different? Everyone's got different things that work for them.
Yeah.
There's no one method.
I mean, I really believe that we're all unique and we all have different needs. And so, and it might be different for people in different stages of their life. And so I like to provide different options of ways that we can all come together in this practice, but maybe in different forms. That, I do believe that meditation is extremely important. I recommend that to everyone. But there are also other mindfulness practices, journaling to help get what's in your mind out of your mind. You can, like I said, the mindful eating practices that we discussed, mindful listening, oftentimes we talk more than we hear people, and we have two ears and one mouth. So really, we should be listening more than we're talking. And so, I think it's about a holistic approach here and giving people different ways to try things and see what works for them.
Right. And I guess a similar answer will be given for posture during meditation.
Mhm.
Is there one posture that one must use, or are there several options?
So, so the recommended posture that I would say I'm a little more strict on that. You definitely want to sit up as straight as you can. But again, there are options. My husband has a, his back hurts when he sits on a cushion, like you see in the sort of stereotypical meditation photos where someone's sitting in a, what we call lotus position.
Yes.
Um, that can be difficult for some people. If you're very inflexible in your hips, that can really hurt. And so you can sit on a chair. But what we want to do, regardless of where you're sitting, is have a straight spine. So we want
Okay.
to, open the airflow as much as possible. I do have some people that have trouble even sitting for that long. So, they can lay down as well. Most people that I come across do fall asleep when you do that, which maybe is your intention. If you're doing it before you go to bed, maybe that's a good thing. So again, playing around with that. I tend to be someone that falls asleep, so I cannot ever lay down and meditate. I don't know. How about you? How do you sit?
I sit straight up. Like your husband, I'm Mr. Inflexible, so I sort of sympathise with him. But I find that if I lean forward slightly, it seems to help, and I can maintain the position for much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Most times I only go for like 30 minutes. I did a 3.5 hour session 2 days ago. That's only because the alarm went off early and I couldn't go back to sleep. So I made something. I made a nuisance, a mistake into an opportunity, and I
Beautiful.
decided to go for it. But that's certainly not normal for me. But whilst I was doing it, I was relaxing, and it was beneficial. So that's good.
Mhm.
But certainly the back can be a problem. But I was watching a video yesterday where this this expert from India says that if you fall asleep, you can, whilst you're meditating, you can
Mhm.
pass the meditation to your sleep, and you can meditate what in your sleep. So you wake up incredibly refreshed. So it may not be a bad thing.
Correct.
May
Yeah.
not be, but again, I guess everyone's different, and you've got to
Yeah.
do what you're comfortable with. Otherwise, you won't continue doing it.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure you've had that. I have done meditations where I know I'm probably going to fall asleep, and it is a very deep sleep when I do that. So again, it's just, if you're trying to meditate and you have to go to something shortly after that, then maybe not lying down is the best option.
What clothing would you recommend whilst doing mindfulness meditation, or during the meditation during the start of the day? Is there any sort of clothing recommendations that you would make?
I just think be comfortable. I've done meditation, and you can really do it in any clothing, but I think being comfortable, both temperature wise and being in whatever position you do choose to sit in, something that allows for that.
Okay, so we've covered meditation. Are there any other techniques that complement the practice of mindfulness?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a bit about eating. Just when you are getting ready to eat, one quick, thing is to just look at the colors on your plate, notice what the colors are, and use your five senses. So that would be sight,
Ah,
smell, if there is a sound, depending on maybe if you're cooking the meal, notice the sound, any textures, and then finally would be tasting. And so if you go through those five senses, that can help you enjoy your meal more and be more present for it.
right.
And just incorporating some of these, what I call micro practices into your day. So maybe you're not, maybe you've done your 10-minute meditation for the day, but you're heading into a meeting and you don't have 10 minutes prior to it. One tool that, is, I guess you use in meditation, but you can use through your whole day, is paying attention to your breath. And so you can do different practices of maybe you just take 3 deep breaths before you join the Zoom call, or maybe while your camera isn't working, like mine was, you take a couple of deep breaths at that time. And they can be, I like to do deep breathing. I recommend deep breathing that helps calm the nervous system and just sort of recenters you in the moment. So paying attention to your breath is a very important practice of mindfulness, because you can notice that at any point. If you're waiting in line behind someone, you can pay attention to your breath. If you're on the phone with a family member that may be triggering you, you pay attention to your breath. So noticing that throughout the day. Also movement. So mindful movement, tends to be slower movement of the body. A lot of people would call it yoga. You can do some stretching, but just really pay attention to how your body is moving. You can also walk very intentionally. Those are just a couple of ways that you can incorporate it. Also, like I mentioned earlier, journaling to me is a mindfulness practice. I like to journal with using a gratitude practice. So just asking yourself, what are 3 things or even one thing that you're thankful for today?
Yeah, the tough days will be one thing.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. But even on a tough day, which we all have them, right? There's always something to be grateful for, whether it's just simply the roof over your head, or, clothing, or something to eat, someone that said hello to you. There's always something. You can always find something small to be grateful for. And I believe that that's always true, no matter what is swirling around you in your life, as long as you're breathing. This is a quote from John Kabat-Zinn. As long as you're breathing, there's more right with you than there is wrong with you, because we're a collection of billions and trillions of cells. And as long as we're breathing, more of them are doing the thing they should be doing and doing the right thing than are not. So
would you agree that mindfulness is like a recipe for happiness, or can be part of a recipe for happiness?
Yeah, I think it can be, for sure, part of, I think connecting to yourself helps you connect with those around you. If you have a family around you, or friends around you, or even people that you work with, and you're connected to yourself, you can connect more to others. A lot of my clients have seen that in their relationships. As they become more mindful and present, they realize that sort of spreads to people around them. So I think it is an ingredient to happiness, for sure. But I think you can be happy, or you can be peaceful as well. And, so without getting into semantics, I think happiness is a nice goal, but also being peaceful, I think, might even be a level above that in my mind.
Right. But both of those can also have positive health benefits, real benefits.
Absolutely.
What sort of, can you tell us what sort of, maybe give examples of people that have gained from the application of mindfulness in their health and in their lives?
Yeah, definitely. So if you look at the work of, there's a program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. It's an 8-week program. And so if anyone's interested in learning all of the science behind that program, it's been in existence for about 40 years. And
Wow.
and it's out of Boston, Massachusetts, in the US. And so that program has shown a reduction in stress, reduction in anxiety, improved relationships. They've also seen, people, not everyone, and I don't want to recommend this because obviously, everyone has their own journey, but people getting off of certain medications that they were dependent on prior to the program, people not being readmitted to the hospital for different conditions that they have. I've seen individuals that had a hemorrhagic stroke, for example, and because of stress, and then decided, hey, first of all, I survived that, which was, a big thing. And then they decided to, change their life. And one of the ways that they did that was through mindfulness. And that helped them manage their stress to hopefully mitigate that from happening in the future. Can we predict a stroke or a heart attack that didn't happen? not at this point, maybe someday, or at least not that I'm aware of. So yeah, I've personally seen people, make job changes to find their true passion because of becoming more aware of how they're feeling during the day. I've seen people, improve their relationship with their children because they didn't realize that it was some sort of block that they had that was preventing them from, connecting with their kids, another one, their spouse. People becoming better leaders just because now they're more compassionate. They're aware that people might have more of a, they're more aware of the things that people deal with, that we're all different and everyone's coming to the workplace with different things going on. And so being more compassionate in that way. So I've seen a lot of great changes in people's lives, but it doesn't come without putting in the work.
Can everyone do it?
I believe that everyone can do it. Yes.
Okay. It's when I was listening to you before, regards to having a better relationship with your family and friends. I guess if you become more perceptive to detail, you could see the micro expressions that people give, and then this little, you could see early signs of someone being displeased with something, and remedy situations so that it doesn't doesn't boil to the surface.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah. And you become more aware of yourself becoming agitated, for example, at someone else. You're saying, okay, my chest is getting hot, my breathing is getting shallow, like I mentioned earlier. Okay, something's happening, something's triggering me. And then you can either choose to step away from that situation, or maybe take some breaths to yourself, to sort of calm yourself so you're not just reacting to the situation. And that's a big one. I mean, reacting versus responding. Reaction, we just do without thinking. You just fly off the handle at someone. Whereas responding, you're choosing your response. So you're taking that extra moment to, reflect and choose, do I want to respond in this way? And you may still respond the same way, but at least you've had a choice in that.
Right, the 3-second rule. before you push the red button, just give yourself 3 seconds to contemplate.
Exactly.
How long does it typically take somebody to become instinctively more mindful?
Again, I think in my experience that varies. Some of us are naturally more mindful than others already. But they may have challenges in different ways. So, I think it takes at least a couple of months to start getting used to sort of the practices and integrating it into your life as it is. And then seeing as things change and things flow, which they inevitably do, okay, how is this practice helping me? Like, for example, when I started, shortly after that 10-day meditation, about 6 months after, my dad had a major health challenge. My mother-in-law had a major health challenge, and our dog passed away. And thankfully, my mother-in-law and my father are fine now. This was several years ago. It was something that I would never want to experience again.
Right.
I feel that because of my mindfulness practice, I was able to be present for all of what happened. So I saw the beauty in my mom and everyone that kind of rallied around her and sort of came to help my parents as they were going through that. I saw, my sisters and I got a lot closer and we live we're all spread out. Because we sort of bonded together over this shared experience. Same thing with my mother-in-law and my husband's family. I saw a similar thing in their family. So, I think it takes, to answer your question, I think it depends on the person, how long it takes to sort of integrate. But I think no matter where you are, whenever you start or whatever you do will be beneficial, because we're all going to have these challenges, like I just mentioned, with these health crises in my family. And so how do we want to face those challenges? Do we want to face them from a calm, grounded, present way? Or do we want to be kind of scattered and haphazard as we enter that? So.
Okay. Right. If someone wants to lose weight, it's always easier to have a group of friends who are part of the secret, and there's like a mini competition, but they support each other. Is it a similar thing with mindfulness? Does it help to have other friends and colleagues who can support and give suggestions and compare notes?
I think so. I think that, a team approach is always helpful. I think
Yes.
with the pandemic and everything we've been through in the last couple of years, I think for a lot of us, that was what we missed, was that sort of community and team. So I think the community piece depends on what that means for you. So does that mean an app that has, a community within that, where you feel like, there's a couple apps that will tell you, congratulations, you finished meditating today. 2,000 other people meditated with you. And that feels cool to know that. That might be good for someone, whereas someone else might need, to do a Zoom call with their friend to, feel like we have accountability. And yeah, I think it's helpful to share notes and say, hey, I did this today, I did that. But because mindfulness really is a lifestyle, I think it's about applying it to your unique life and your unique situation. I think it's always helpful to talk with others about that.
Are there any apps that you would recommend people use?
Yeah, so there's an app called Insight Timer. I believe I haven't used it in a while because I don't use the apps myself anymore, but my clients have used it, and there's a free version and a paid version. And that's great if you just want to sort of search for meditation for sleep, for example. They have thousands of teachers. I'm one of the teachers on there if you want to look up some of mine. There's also an app that a lot of my clients like called Headspace, which you may have heard of. It's more of a prescriptive, here's day one, here's your meditation for day one, here's day two, here's day three. And they have fun little cartoons and things on there that are helpful to learn some of the concepts that we're talking about. There's another one called Calm that is very popular as well. So those are kind of the three. And I believe they have, some of them are subscription, kind of depends. They change their models, it seems. So I can't keep track of all of them all the time.
In books for beginners, people learning and they know nothing now, are there any books that you would recommend for people that they could read and get some of the basic concepts of mindfulness?
Yes. So a book I like is called Wherever You Go, There You Are, which is by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who created the mindfulness-based stress reduction program I mentioned earlier. There's also a book called, I believe it's called Intro to Meditation. It's by Yogani. It's a very tiny little book, maybe 50, 60 pages. So that's, kind of an easy way to start. And I think any book on kind of compassion is helpful, because while it doesn't specifically talk about mindfulness in the title, there's I guess it is called Mindful Self-Compassion. It's by Kristin Neff, because I believe, compassion is a big component of mindfulness, because we tend to be our own worst critic, right? We're harder on ourselves than we are on anyone else. Sometimes we say things to ourselves that we would never say to a friend or a loved one. And so having compassion for yourself and where you are on your journey is so powerful and so healing to implement that practice. So that's a great book as well.
That's quite, mindfulness has got such a terrific impact, or the potential to provide an impact to people's lives and health. And it's not expensive. Like, it's not something you have to buy and then take every day. It's just a different lifestyle that you introduce, a change to your lives, and then there's real world benefits. I'm struggling to think of any cons. Maybe having to meditate every morning or set aside a time for meditation is probably the only con, but that in itself is a pro, because it means you're, for at least a short period of time, distancing yourself from all these triggers around you.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the cons, it's not necessarily a con, but it does take time, and it's a lifelong journey. It's not going to be something that in 3 weeks or 3 months or even 3 years, you're going to say, okay, I'm done. I'm I got it. It's over. It's, as you continue learning about yourself, you find all these different layers. I'm sure you've experienced this in your meditation journey that you didn't even know existed. And you find different places in your life to apply it, your family, your exercise routine, your finances, even, eating, as I've mentioned a few times, family, relationships, even technology, mindfulness over your technology use. Right now, that's a big topic. And so, there's just so many ways to apply it that sometimes it can feel overwhelming, and it does take time, as anything should.
I'd like to thank you for the time that you've gifted to us. We've gained a terrific lot of knowledge from our discussion. Is there any points that we haven't covered about mindfulness that you'd like to mention now?
I think we've covered most of it. I could continue talking, but yeah, I think we've covered the main points and how people can get started and, apply it to their lives. So
how can people contact you to have tuition? How can people contact you?
So I'm on Instagram. It's Christiana Serle, or you can feel free to visit my website. It's the same, christianaserle.com, and just kind of connect that way, and we can go from there. But I would love to connect with you on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook as well, and just kind of see how your journey is going and what's working for everyone out there. Because I learned too from communicating with others. So.
And you've got quite a presence on YouTube and other online media that I've seen. It's very embarrassing when you interview someone and then you just realize at the very end of the interview you've pronounced their name wrong, the surname at least.
Oh,
Thank you for not correcting me. That shows that you've got fantastic compassion and also a huge degree of tolerance, which is very good whenever.
No worries, it happens all the time. So.
Thank you so much for coming on to our show. It's been a wonderful blessing to us and all the viewers that will be watching this video. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.